I will link all of Ash's reviews for these that exist down below, because Asha is the person who got me onto these, and I love her reviews for them. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and you're watching another episode of Overbooked, the series where I talk about every single book on my shelf, because we have mysteries to solve and pigeons to defend. Today, we are talking about Laura Laxo's Wilde Investigations series. Some quick disclaimers before we start. This is an ARC copy of the book. It wasn't actually sent to me by the publisher, it was given to me by a friend who had multiples. Regardless of where books come from, nobody's paying me to talk about books, including Scribd, which is the service I used to read all the other books in the series. Short interlude while I button my cuffs. Cuffs have been buttoned. This is a paranormal investigations, crime, murder mystery, mysteries in general series set in London. There are currently 3 books and a novella. There is Fallible Justice, Echo Murder, Roots of Corruption, and The Doves in the Dining Room. The Doves in the Dining Room being the novella. There is a 4th book due out. There is a cover for it. I can't remember what it is called or when it's coming out. Editing Judith can supply that knowledge. Thank you, Editing Judith. Laura Laxo is a Finnish author currently living in the UK who has not 1, but 2 degrees in archaeology. The people with the best taste have degrees in archaeology. It's a fact. I don't know what else to tell you. Also, the fact that half of her About Me page on her website is dedicated to her dogs means I think we have a spiritual connection. So, these are, I would say, on the surface level, fairly standard paranormal investigation-y books. We have our main character, Yanya, who is one of the wild folk living in London, which is unusual, because normally they would prefer to be in nature. But she has moved to London because she required modern medicine to deal with her EDS. And each book tackles a different mystery with Yanya and her apprentice/assistant, Carrion, who is a bird shaman who pigeons follow around, and there are other recurring characters and themes within these books. The setting is such that we have Old London, where magic users live, and New London, where non-magic users live, and the two are kind of aware of each other, not really. Things overlap, things coincide. It's interesting. I'm not sure I 100% understand who knows what about what, but that's by the by. I had a good time reading them. Let's talk about why. That's definitely going to fall on me at some point in this video. Yanya as our main character. Thank you, Luna, for interjecting on that one. I think she's a fantastic main character. I really love the premise of this character who had to leave behind this sort of fey world in order to manage a chronic illness. I found that so interesting as a hook for the series, I guess, and there are other characters who deal with various conditions and mental health issues throughout the series. And I think personally it's all handled very sensitively. Obviously I'm not the best person to speak to that, but the people I know who have read the books who also deal with chronic pain, chronic fatigue and so such relate to the character a lot in that way. I just really enjoy her way of looking at the world, her rationalisation of things, and I think it's really refreshing to read a PI who is struggling not with addiction. I just found that nice and refreshing. No problem with the trope of a PI who's a bit of a drunk or a bit of a whatever, but in this case I found it nice to read something slightly different. I also found this London setting really enjoyable. I'm not a person who's like deeply obsessed with London. I was there this week. It was very stressful, but I definitely enjoyed this idea of the magical world and the modern world kind of coexisting, and the pockets of magic within London I found really fascinating, and I liked kind of the way that the same issues crop up in magical London as they do, or in Old London as they do in New London, of not being enough housing or economic disparity or all of the above. It's all still there, and I found that very fascinating. I also really like the mysteries. They're kind of classic in the way that they bring up themes that you could look at in other ways, like I said, about, you know, inequality and classism and so such. But I actually think they are just really fun mysteries. I think my favourite mystery-wise is probably The Doves in the Dining Room, the novella. But I think that's because novellas really work for mysteries, because you have to cut down to the very basic, you know, classic mystery setup and denouement kind of thing. It's not my favourite book because I like the characters and some of the characters don't feature in the novella, but I do like the mystery. I think maybe if you read more mystery than I have, they might feel different, but for me it was pretty fresh and pretty new and not something I'd read heaps of, so it felt nice and surprising and a good time looking at these paranormal investigation-y kind of things. This is a very personal thing and you may feel completely differently. I didn't personally love the ship that has started to sail in this series. It's not my thing, so that would be my one qualm, is that there are other things I wish that could be happening, but I think that might be my own fault for not reading descriptions of people well enough and thus reading them as not romantic interests, and then they are, and that was confusing, but that's maybe just me. I also found that on occasion it really felt like clues were staring characters in the face and they weren't picking up on them, and I think it kind of undermined the intelligence of Yanya as a character. But I do understand it is a really delicate balance in a mystery novel to have your reader solve things before the detective does. Like, you have to leave those clues there, and it makes you feel really good as a reader to have solved the mystery. But for me, I was just there like, why have you not realised this? That was particularly prevalent in Roots of Corruption. It wasn't so much there in the other books, but given that that's a later book, it makes me slightly nervous for future novels. Just slightly, just slightly. I also found that some of them just aren't mysteries. It's not a straight up, this has happened and we need to solve who did it. Sometimes it's how they did it, and so such. That's not really a con, that's just something to note. I read so little urban fantasy paranormal stuff. I've just finished the book that we were reading for Space Sirens, Borderline by Michelle Baker, which originally when I filmed this, because I have filmed this video twice because I lost the footage to myself, I hadn't talked about that because I hadn't read it yet. Now I can bring that one in. I found that book much heavier than this. It's a much more difficult topic. It's obviously much more modern in its feel, partly I think because it's set in LA, but it does have some similar threads in terms of one world coexisting with another and managing the mysteries that come with that and harnessing the power of that and so such. Rivers of London is an obvious comparison. I read the first Rivers of London book. I have friends who absolutely love them. They're their favourite books of all time. I have friends who do not like them. I personally sit on the I'm okay, I'm not super fussed about reading these kind of side of the fence, I suppose. It's a very odd shaped fence. That's where I am, but I think it makes sense to compare them because they are somewhat similar. I also wonder, do I need to make a list of mystery novels and maybe find all the like subsections of mystery and read one of each of them and decide what my favourite kind of mystery novel is? Do I need more projects at the moment? Absolutely not. I am snowed under, but it is tempting. It is tempting. Do I think you should read these? Do I think these are worth picking up? Absolutely, yes. I had a great time with them. I think even the novella, in fact, I would say you do need to read the novella. It's an important part of it to get like the full sense of the world and Yanya as a character. So I would say if mystery and paranormal stuff is your thing, go for it. If you're like me and you don't read a lot of paranormal fantasy kind of stuff, then these still might be your thing if you lean into other interests, and give it a go. Why not read book one and see how it is? And if you like book one, you'll probably like the rest of the books as well. Do you have any paranormal, urban, mystery, or any of the above novel recommendations? Hit me up with them down in the comments below, because I would really love to read more, especially having liked the first book in the Arcadia Project, that Borderline book. I would like to maybe read more, she says, knowing full well she doesn't have much space in her schedule, but recommend them to me and I might get to them one day. Do it, recommend them. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord where we have a wonderful time talking about books. It's lovely and chill. Nothing makes me feel more loved and appreciated than my patrons over on Patreon. If you would like to join their number, that's linked in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching... Oh, just poked myself in the face, but apparently we're gonna get a guest appearance. She's coming. Nope, she's just getting up to itch.